This is the Born Sacrifice channel and the 924S build slash 1.8 turbo 20 valve engine install. This is episode 7, continuation really of the last episode. For anyone that made it all the way to the end of the last one, we're pretty much picking up exactly where we left off last time. So the status there was the sump had been, or this is a different sump, has been cut. So that is cut so that it will fit across the Porsche crossmember. So actually there was a little bit that was taken out of there, and from that I was basically waiting. I needed some 1.5mm steel, which is now in. Had that delivered this morning, and that needs to go in. So this is pretty much the shape that I need to kind of the arts and crafts thing again, and that's going to give me the cutout that I need to basically fill that, something to weld in, and get that back into shape. So I think the way that I'm going to go about this is to cut a square-ish piece that's larger than this, bend it through 90 degrees, and then actually put this shape onto it rather than marking the shape out and then trying to bend it accurately. I think that's probably the easiest way of doing it. I'm going to try and use the vise, I think, and maybe some thicker metal that I've got. I now have quite a lot of steel knocking about to actually get that done. The other thing, or one of the other things, quite a few bits turned up this week, but in purpose of this episode, these suckers turned up. So I did a small bit last time just to demonstrate one of the problems that I was having with the welding, other than my welding skills, and that was the when I was using the larger magnets to actually hold everything in place, the arc was sort of going a bit weird rather than just getting on and welding. So I checked online, source of all knowledge and truth, and other people seemed to be having the same problems, and the consensus seemed to be that if you put a big magnet near where you're welding, then the magnetic field is going to interfere with the arc that's coming off of the welding tip. So hopefully those are going to be the answer. To be fair, they don't need to be that strong. These say they'll hold 10 pounds, whatever that is in real weight, I'm not sure. But they just need to hold it in place a little bit. So the first thing I'm needing to do then is to cut cut a section out of the steel that I can then work with, get bending, and then get the shape on and something ready for cutting. So time to get on with that. So I've got my metal cut. This is the piece that I've roughly, or not roughly, quite accurately marked out a line there in terms of where I want to make the fold. And as last week, I also made a few strips that I've just cut out so that I can do a bit of practice welding and also just get the settings right for that. So put those aside. It's a bit wasteful, but I had some slightly thicker steel. I can't remember what I bought this for. I think this might be what I made the original plate out from, if you've seen the bell housing video. And the idea behind this is I basically don't have a metal folding machine. I did think about buying one, but at the moment I think this is about the only thing I'm likely to do with it, so I thought it's probably a bit wasteful, given everything else I need to buy. So the idea is that this first thicker piece with the straighter edge on it will go against that side, so that will give me a nice clean line, and then this will be on the other side, roughly at the top, but it doesn't really matter that it's not completely level because the metal is going to be folded the other way. So I'm going to try putting this in a vise, this vise even, and then seeing if I can push it by hand. I've got another thicker, heavier piece of steel, which I've got, so I might even try and use that as a bit of a device for actually folding this down. This could be a complete calamity. I might make a complete dick of myself. But anyway, this is a attempt one in terms of actually getting this folded. It would be nice if I can do it on first try and I don't end up using that massive sheet of steel every time in trying to get this done. So yeah, I think I'm going to clamp it on the smaller part, so that gives me then a bit more leverage for pushing action. So I'm going to start getting this all set up. So I'm just working on the bit of metal that's going to fit to fill that gap in the sump pan. I've keep cutting the sump and trimming the sump, and then I do one bit and then I do something else to correct it and what have you. So I'm almost there in terms of the metal, in terms of the shape that it needs to be. So what I'm doing now actually is just doing some hammering. So I've hammered that down so that it's fairly square, but I don't know if you can see it's got a bit of a lift on it now, which is causing it not to fit as flush into the corner as I want it to. So I've just put this in the vise with this beam here to give me something to work against. So I'm going to do a bit of hammering there, and because the sump itself, let's have a look at this, so that's fairly, it's not completely even, and that's not complete, everything's not entirely square, one thing against the other. So I think because I keep doing correction after correction, what I'm going to do is get the shape marked, get it cut roughly so that it fits or tacked into place, and once the tacks are in there, then I'll use those. Hopefully they'll hold it and it'll be strong enough so that I can then just get everything hammered. Right, other than I need to fix the nut on the vise, probably get some Loctite on, the damn thing keeps falling off. Anyway, I think that's close enough now that I can do a rough cut on it with the grinder and then tack it into place for a bit more hammering, just to get those gaps around the edge nice before I do the final bit. Okay. Looking at it, this corner is currently the best, and it's sort of, I can't be bothered to move the thing under, and the gap under there is pretty good as well. So I think I'm going to start by tacking along here a little bit, and then working on this corner, tacking that down the side, and then I can maybe just shunt the bottom back in a bit. So that's the plan. Hopefully it will work. If I'm doing this completely wrong and there's a much better way of going about it, then I'll be interested to hear it. Okay, that is now off. You can see my little tacks were, and so the slight mess I've made, but that's the line I need to mark around or grind around, and I'll just make a little thing there to make sure that I remember to add a little bit of extra depth, because that's going to be hammered down and it'll probably take a bit away. So I'm going to, yeah, just get this in the vise and get on with some more cutting and grinding. Well, I don't know what's up with my left nostril, but these Draper Expert anti-fog glasses seem to be fogging up quite a lot. Anyway, so yes, that's now the tack's ground off. I'm just going to try and get in to the back and grind a little more of the powder coating off from the inside, just because when I was doing the tack welds there was quite a bit of smoke coming off, and although I'd cleaned all of this up, I think essentially it was burning through and burning off the powder coating on the other side, which obviously isn't great for fumes. So yeah, I'm just going to switch you guys off and do that real quick, and then I'll look at doing some proper welding. Right, I've got everything cut to size, and I've been around with the grinder, just cleaned up everything on either side on the pieces that I'm going to be welding, and now I'm just going to give it a quick clean up with some acetone, just to make sure that the surfaces are clean as possible. As I get close now to doing some proper welding, say proper welding, it's obviously been proper welding before when I was doing some practicing, but this is sort of, production welding, I think is probably the correct word. And I have to say, I'm a bit nervous. Just like I said at the start, this in the last video, the sump's not the most expensive thing in the world. It's more money than I would want to waste, but if I get this wrong, I get this wrong, and I can do it again. But I don't want to get it wrong. I want to get it right. So yeah, I just hope that I am having a good welding day. I've at least managed to get the settings properly worked out on the welder in terms of heat and wire speed. I might just have another quick practice run on something here, just to make sure that I'm doing that properly. Well, it's done. The actual welding bits, the ones where the sections sort of went okay, and one of them was quite surprising. I went around one of the corners fairly easily. But when I did get sections where I did blow through, and in this bit here where there was a hole or gap that needed filling, that just took forever. So my guess is, I don't know how long the last bit was, but this is going to be cut down quite a bit. I'm just going to have a quick look now for holes. I can see from looking at it from the other side that there were one or two. So I'm just going to, before I do anything else, just plug those, and then I'll get the grinder on it, flatten it out, and that'll allow me to see where I have got holes and spots and bits and pieces that I need to go in and fill again. So disappointed, because when I was doing the practicing I seemed to be getting on quite well. So anyway, enough of my tears. I will just plug those few bits and then get it ground. After grinding, that's where we are. There's still a bit to do, so I've got a flat wheel that I'm going to for a drill, which I'm just going to put in there and just blast these corners. Obviously I'm tidying it up to make it a bit neater, but at the same time actually the main reason for doing this is to find any holes. So I can see there's a couple of pinpricks, one there and one there, and when I'm done I'll be astonished if there isn't something there that's a bit of a mess that I need to sort out. So yeah, it's the end result I think is actually probably not going to look too bad, and I think it's really going to disguise the I'm trying to not swear, and I don't know, the lack of craftsmanship and welding skills, which I'm obviously disappointed with the results just because of how it is, but I'm a bit disappointed because I thought I was getting a bit better. I don't know if I just got a bit carried away once I got to the stage of welding, but yeah, so flap wheel, check for spots, and then put a bit more weld in, and I think on these corner bits I'm going to have a look and see how I'm doing, particularly this one where there was a gap. I may just put a bit of weld on the inside and then tidy that up. The reason I've not gone around, or the reason I did it from the outside rather than the inside, partly was because I'm a bit worried about my flaky welding skills coming to the fore and little bits coming off and then getting sucked up into the engine and making a mess. It shouldn't do because of the strainer, but it's a minor concern. So yeah, I'm going to get that done, but after I've eaten some lunch. I'll be back in a bit. So here we are. I've been filling or putting some little welds in through the smaller holes. I'll be honest, a couple of times I've blown through, which is very, very frustrating, and then tidying up. So I think I've got everything now. So what I am going to do as a bit of a proof is just put some hot water in here and check for leaks. Other than obviously the sump plug hole, I think I'm going to struggle to get this through and around all of the angles, but the main bits I want to check are the bottom corners here and here, and just along this edge actually, because that's where it's been most problematic. So I'm just going to leave that for a bit and see if I get any leaks. I was a bit worried about that, but I think that's just a shiny spot. So have a look. Well, annoyingly my test has worked, and in that it's identified a hole. Looks like it's just the one, although I think what I'm going to have to do is dig out the sump plug and then get that done. In the meantime, I've got, yeah, so I'll drain this out, dry everything off, and then look to get that corner welded. And while I missed it with the naked eye, there's the little pinhole that the hot water's identified. So I've fixed the first hole and I identified another one. Last night I did another water test on this and I've identified a few more leaks. I've got some more water with me today, so I can do a bit of welding and what have you. One thing which did occur to me is that I'm creating problems for myself, just generally. So I think what's happening is I'm welding, getting that sorted, and then grinding. Where I've been grinding this down, I think in certain spots, I think part of these holes, or where I'm blowing through it, is because I'm making the metal a lot thinner. So what I'm going to do is just cut a little channel in where the hole is, and then it's almost going to be, I'm going to turn the power down on the welder a little bit so that it hopefully stops it blowing through, and where it is a bit thinner, and I can just go over that as if it was a join and hopefully just build that up, and that'll solve the problem. I think that'll do for those bits. Another water test, see where I am. I'm actually going to do the water test before I start, well, I'm going to do it before and after I do the grinding back. I think I might just do a quick bit with the Dremel wheel to get it down. I don't quite know why, given where this is going to be located, I'm making such a fuss about the appearance of it, but for some reason I can't help myself. So I'm going to do a bit of that now. I'm probably not going to film it, but I'll be back with the results. The good news is it is now holding water. So there's no leaking. This has been in situ for probably the best part of half an hour now, and there's no water coming out. I've ground back the underside a bit. I'm not going to do it anymore because I don't want to go inviting problems by missing. I'm just not accurate enough with it. Anyway, next stage is the oil return line from the turbo. So what I've done is I've had a look. So this is the original sump because I want to see where the positioning was. So down here we've got the drain, and here is the turbo return line, which is actually quite a lot lower than I was expecting. Everywhere I read it said I'll put it up the top, especially bearing in mind that that's going to be slanted over like that. That's quite low down. Sump is now dried out and ready to have the AN fitting, drain fitting done. I think probably the best spot is just directly up from the drain plug. So I'm going to get that position there. I'm just going to punch through, drill it, and then get on with the step drill and another week, another job is down, and if you look at it in terms of checklist that I would have had at the start of the week, cut the sump, weld the sump, get it holding fluids, get it tapped for the AN fitting, and make sure it clears the cross member. So in terms of a mental checklist, those were all positives and I've hit my goals. In terms of the way that it's actually gone, what I've tried to do and what I keep trying to do with these videos is just be as honest as possible in terms of the way that things are going. It's not gone well, and that's been quite apparent to anyone with eyeballs. I've needed to substitute persistence and patience for actual ability. Where the welding's not gone as well as it should have done, having to go back and redo it and redo it and redo it, just until it gets to the end result. So I didn't really do much in terms of showing you what was done, but essentially what was the finished result hanging out there would have been painted. That's now attached to the bottom of the engine. So yeah, in terms of that, is reasonably successful, but how I got there was a bit disappointing. I can't seem to go from practicing the welding and making headway there and then start doing something like the sump and it all goes to pieces. I get the yips and it goes wrong. But I'm not sure if that's because of the shape in terms of using nice neat pieces to practice with and then getting on to something which is a bit more messy. I think it's probably a combination of that and my skills. So I'm looking down on the floor because I have got lots of steel, lots of 3 meter lengths where I actually probably need 30 or 50 centimeters. So I'm going to be cutting those up and getting bits that I can practice with. So that's going to be the main thing for next week. Is I'm not going to actually be building the engine mounts. I was quite excited to be getting with those next, but I'm nowhere near where I need to be in terms of consistency with welding, so I need to be practicing that. I'm not going to be doing a video on that because it's probably not good. It's just going to be the same thing over and over and over again, and it's not going to be incredibly exciting unless I get really, really frustrated and have a complete meltdown. So I might film bits of it to drop in into something else at some point. But yeah, so I'm not going to not be doing a video next week because what I'm going to be doing is I've bought a turbocharger. It's the later version of this engine.
from a facelift car, and it's the K3OS turbocharger, the hybrid one for the turbo spotters out there. It's obviously used, well obviously, but it is. And I've also bought a rebuild kit, so I'm going to be taking that apart and then putting it back together, hopefully removing some of the plate and making it a bit more serviceable. So I've got a new toy to play with next week, something to clean it up with, so I'm looking forward to using that. But yeah, not a brilliant week this week in terms of what I've done, although I guess in a week's time I'll be a bit more pleased with the end result. But thanks always for watching. And hopefully you're getting some out of it and not getting too frustrated at the way how I'm doing things. Be interested to see how you like the content, the way that it's being done, in terms of the style of this is what I'm doing it, and so on and so forth, and fast forwardy bits with music. How do you feel about those? So yeah, I'm gonna keep progressing as much as I can, and sort of hopefully have a job done in a video each week. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'm going to go and get some food, and I will see you hopefully in about a week's time where I dismantle a turbo.